Hello everyone, Scott here from Pillow Partners. This week I have something different, not a live Q&A, but we are talking about a specialised subject, which is winterising your serviced accommodation unit. And my name on screen isn't Scott Weir, it's Santa Weir. Why? Because I'm going to be giving you a fantastic Christmas present. I have a big sack of goodies here when it comes to protecting your serviced accommodation unit. Now, I've prepared this presentation and these bits of advice based on being a managing agent, having a management company since 2006. How many years? That 17 years? Don't know. A lot of years, and these are the things that I have seen every single year be ignored by our landlords in the early stages and our hosts. And I can guarantee you in 2023, these things will happen when we go into next year. Guys, the advice we're going to give you here will be ignored. Owners trying to save money, not do things themselves, and not do things right, cut corners. So guys, I think this is going to be very, very relevant for you. And see if you don't do these things that I'm about to say and things go wrong. And again, it's a tiny chance of them going wrong, but if they do, some of these things can be game over. Some of these things can wipe you out as a serviced accommodation operator. So guys, trust me, easy to overlook these things. I'm going to be honest in advance for anyone watching live or in reruns. This is all very, very simple stuff. You're not going to hear anything here that is totally, let's not hate the term rocket science, guys. But we're not going to be inventing time travel here or doing anything super, super strategic. It's the basics, but it's the basics done well that sets you apart from your competitors. And guys, please comment if you're watching live, put anything in. We are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, and we are on YouTube. I keep getting those mixed up. I'm looking over to Grace for a prompt here. Now, I always just say Grace is a glamorous assistant behind the scenes. But a little bit more about what Grace does. Grace is part of our marketing team. She leads up the social media department. Now, a little bit more than that, because if you are part of the Pillow franchise and you're with us and you've got access to all our apps and software, you will see that Grace runs our social media mastermind group. And then just an insight, we have lots of different masterminds, lots of groups within Pillow. And I think when he added it up, it's at least £100,000 a year of masterminds. If you guys had to pay for this externally in its different parts, we'll put them all together and we've employed people to be those mastermind leaders. And Grace, behind the scenes, is our leader for our service accommodation mastermind. We bring together all the newest traits, all the tips, the tactics. And again, we help all of our franchisees. We don't let anyone in. It's only our franchisees and partners that do it. So that's who Grace is behind the scenes. And she'll be loading in any questions live, guys. So please put them in. Otherwise, I'm just going to make a little start here with the topics that I wanted to cover. And firstly, ensure you have adequate insurance. This is so simple, it gets overlooked, guys. You need to double check this. Firstly, look at it from a point of view of an insurance company. If you've ever done an insurance claim, guys, you know insurance companies will do anything to get out of paying that insurance payout. They'll find some clause and there's loss adjusters fighting against you to make sure that you don't get your money. So guys, I'm going to keep this one short because the rest of the presentation and the rest of the tips and advice are going to elaborate on this, how you can win against the insurance companies. So come from it from that point of view. If I need to make a claim, will that insurance company pay out? Even if I have adequate insurance, the next thing is, do you have adequate insurance? Many landlords, especially in serviced accommodation hosts, scrimp and save on their policies, or they take a policy from a third-party company selling it and it isn't right for them. They may be adding it onto their home insurance from their existing supplier, provider. Guys, they will not cover you for different things. And again, we'll elaborate this as we go through. I'll give you a great example. 10 years ago now, I sent an email out to us, make sure you get adequate insurance. Here's a company to use. That landlord came back and said, well, I've got my insurance. I says, well, make sure they do, because there was a clause in most insurance policies. If your property is empty for a certain amount of days, you will not be insured. And that landlord scrimped on his insurance, had a bill in for 28 grand, tried to claim on it because a pipe burst. I think this was back in 2010, guys. It was a super freeze of 2010. It was the craziest, busiest time ever as a letting agent because everything froze. It was the coldest year in decades. And that landlord couldn't make a claim for 28 grand. Why? His property had been empty for 30 days and his insurance policy cut out at 28. Now, that was a landlord back in 2010, but had that claim happened 27 days, he should have been okay. But he scrimped on the insurance policy. That cost him 28 grand. The tips we're about to share here, I added them up very quickly. That's one story at 28 grand. £500,000, £500,000 of these different things that landlords have done wrong, scrimped on money, and it's cost them more. So that is one example there. Last thing for insurance, there's emergency cover. You can get house insurance for these things, but you can actually get emergency cover for electricity breaking, for bits and bobs. So you can pay extra to get that emergency assistance cover. Again, we're not affiliated to sell insurance, so that's not the purpose of this one. But guys, do not scrimp on this. You don't need insurance until you need it. But trust me, guys, double check your policies. And if you're shoehorning a buy-to-let property with a buy-to-let mortgage and trying to do it as service accommodation, your insurance company will weasel out of that. So you need to make sure your insurance is in place. Thank you for that. Next one, winterize your plumbing. Nice and simple one, this. When things freeze, guys, things like, it's a simple things like the outlet overflow pipe for your boiler that goes outside. When boilers break, it's often not the boiler, it's as simple as the outside pipe. Now, this has been updated and the technical specifications of these being installed have been updated. But going back to the last one, 90% of freezes and things happening where boilers stop working in buy-to-let properties historically was the overflow pipe. Nice and simple, just get that all insulated. Another thing here, guys, is with the advances in loft insulation and wall insulation, it stops, it's great, it keeps the heat in, but it stops the heat getting to the loft. So often your pipes that were fine for the last 5 years, then you get your loft insulated, your loft's going to be colder by definition. So simple things like this can really, really affect it. So winterize your plumbing, plan ahead for this. I'm not going to go into it in great detail because I want to keep this to half an hour, but plan ahead and make sure your stuff is adequate. Let's move on. Keep the property heated if it will be empty. Again, if we had many years ago, if we know a property is 100% going to be empty for a period, some hosts don't want to do Christmas and New Year. They may shut properties down in certain areas. They just don't want to do it, and they're going to leave the property empty. Just drain the heating down. Again, guys, if you don't drain your heating and you know it's going to be there for a long period of time, you either need to keep the heating on at an adequate level so that nothing freezes, or you drain it down. Going back to the first point, trust me, guys, even if you keep your heating on, your insurance company may want you to drain the heating down. It may be a clause in your insurance policy. So if you're not keeping it heated, you may legally be obliged to claiming that insurance to drain the system down. And don't save money on this, guys, for the sake of, and again, I know it's expensive, easy for me to say, but if you know you're just shutting your property down or you don't have any bookings, or if you're a landlord and you're not going to get it let by, hey, this time of year, are people going to move between Christmas and New Year? Is your letting agent going to find you a long-term tenant? Like the week before Christmas, if it's not let, chances are it's going to be sitting empty to the week after New Year, maybe even longer. And if you add that up, guys, that's a month. And that takes you over to the minimum period of 28 days, referring back to other insurance policies. So keep the heating, don't scrimp and save on this. And often if you keep your heating on at a lower level, it's probably just as cost efficient as turning it off, because you're going to need to heat that up. And guys, when you think of global temperatures and the way things work, the sun goes into the ground and heats the ground up, and that takes a few months to cool down. So that's why it's colder later on in the winter season. That's the same with your property. If you've got property heating, the bricks, the ground, everything is going to keep at a certain level. When you switch that off, it's going to freeze. It's going to take a lot longer to heat that property back up because it doesn't have that thermal heat there. So hope that makes sense, guys. Now, this one, make a snow removal plan. I can guarantee and I think it was Saturday morning. I looked out the window and it was glorious snow. It was that thick with snow here in Glasgow, and I knew it was going to perhaps snow, but I looked out and it got me thinking. All the cars were sliding, everything was white. There was no grit in the roads in the private house in the estate. And got me thinking, if I had a guest in a property, an old person, and they had to walk out here, that's going to be very dangerous, even to go from the house to the car. So imagine your guest turn up at the property and it has snowed and they need to get in. You, as a able-bodied, middle-aged person that's resourceful and resilient, might be able to deal with that, but will your guest? So you can't expect guests to go and start moving snow. They just won't do it. And if they do need to do it, they're going to be pissed off. They're going to give bad reviews. It's bad for the customer experience. Here's a thing. If a guest phones you up and says, it's snowing, would you come and clear the snow off the path? I know by monitoring the forums, guys, and all these holiday let things, I know 50% of people watching this would say, not my responsibility. A guest should do this himself. I know at least 50% of hosts would be thinking this, guys. Look at it this way. If they've put in communications to you by email or text and you've said no, and then they slip and fall, again, looking back, do you think a court is going to take favour on that? Do you think Airbnb or anybody's going to take favour when they've asked you and you've deliberately said no because you're tight? Or you think somebody should be able to do this? You need to protect yourself, not just your property, but you need to protect yourself as hosts. Because if they slip and fall, the very least they're going to be wanting is a full refund for that, but they're going to be taken to social media. And guys, you as a host, you know what I'm saying. If a guest slips in the snow, they're going to be wanting to sue you and they're going to want compensation. Never ever leave yourself open for that. Here's a nice extra bonus tip for you guys. If you do need to go and do the snow, build some goodwill with neighbours and do theirs as well. Imagine they come out and you've done it. Because your neighbours are your first point of contact. They're there to help and support you. You want to make friends with them. So if you can clear their snow off their path as well, especially if they're elderly. And guys, even if it's a neighbour a street away, ask your neighbour, are there any elderly people here? If you're doing yours, give somebody an extra £5 to do that elderly person next door. May never help your business. It's just a nice thing to do in general. Get your emergency contractors in place well in advance. Again, it's so simple, it's often overlooked. Many times I've spoken to landlords over the years and hosts, and they say, yeah, I've got it, my brother-in-law does it. Yeah, Big Davey. My pal Johnny always does it. Contractors are reliable until they're not reliable. It's the busiest time of year. They're going to be dealing with emergencies. Guys, I want you to plan for the worst. Many times, as a management company, we are told by hosts, only use my guy. Don't use your guys. I don't want to use your contacts. I only want to use mine. Under no circumstances use any other gas engineer apart from Davey or electrician apart from Davey. It's my guy, it's my brother-in-law. And then when you phone Davey up, Davey just doesn't answer his phone. And you phone the host up and they say, no, it's all right, he's busy, he'll get back to you. And it goes on and it pisses guests off, guests want compensation, and it's false economy. So if you have one person in place for the winter, guys, it's a service level failure waiting to happen. Those guys, even if it's not somebody that's a close relative, they will have lots of calls. They will have lots of people to service. And guys, look at it this way. If you've got your pal Davey that you've knocked down in price, it does you a special make rates deal, and then somebody else phones up that they don't know that's going to pay the emergency call out, it's going to pay much higher rates because you think you're a shrewd businessman for knocking them down on the rates because you're a property investor, and Joe Blogs off the street is going to pay them double what you would pay them. They're going to go to them. Simple business economics. So you need some backup options. We always say you need 3. we will always have our principal one with the hosts, and they say, "Guy, I want you to use Davey. Davey's my man." But we always say, if we can't get Davey and it's an emergency, or don't know if that's gunshots, Grace, or a car backfiring and it's Glasgow, it could be both in the background, hopefully not coming for me. We can, if you've got 3 people there, then you can use the principal person, but you also got a couple of backups. And if we always say to our hosts, and guys, if you've got a management company or you are a managing agent, tell your hosts, we will use your nominated person, but what if we can't get them? Oh, you can always get them. No, you can't. There's a 50% success rate in getting the nominated contractor. So have service terms in place. If I phone Davey up and Davey doesn't answer his phone because he's on the piss or he's away making money, what is the time scale to go to backup number 2 and backup number 3? Make sure if you're a property management company, you do this with your hosts, and make sure if you're managing your own property, just have that cut off. I know you want to use your friend and give them their business. I know they're cheaper and you save 10 quid, but what is the customer service level where you need to go and get their electricity fixed? You need to service that problem before it's actually the guest experience takes precedent over you making money. And this is where relationships matter, guys. We said to you, if you're that shrewd property business that gets the best deal off your contractors, they'll fuck you over when it comes to making more money because you're knocking them down. You don't value them. And when it really matters, they're not going to go and service you. So if you've got a great relationship with your contractors, they're much more likely to be there when you really, really need it. I hope that makes sense. Upgrade your guest communications is the next one. So I'm going to start this by saying expectations versus reality. What are your guests expecting when they get there? We always want guest expectations to be at least met as a backup, but then exceeded. So if guests get there and are disappointed because something's went wrong, then they're going to be unhappy. But if things go wrong, you can tell them in advance. You can tell them, hey, it's the winter. You can send communications out. The weather predicts a really, really cold freeze. We expect everything to be okay, but hey, there's been power shortages somewhere else in the country. Maybe it's happening to us. I've done my best. Guys, it's winter, just to let you know, prepared. We can never predict these things, but if the gas or electricity goes off, we have extra things to make your stay good. More on that in the next one, but let them know. Here's a nice, simple example on this. One of the things that goes wrong with boilers isn't that boilers break, it's that they need topped up. So for us, we always make a video, and it's something that might never happen in your property, but it does in the most cases. If you've got a property for 5 years, the boiler won't be working, and it's a simple thing of topping the boiler up. Now, if the boiler breaks and they get there and it's cold when your cleaner's left a day earlier or 2 hours earlier and the heating won't work, if you have already sent the guest a thing with a video on how to top the boiler up, expectations versus reality. Oh, they say this might happen because the heating's going full blast. Oh, I will follow their video and top it up. But if the heating isn't working, you say, yeah, you go and top that boiler up. I'll send you a video. They're going to be pissed off. They're going to say they can't do it and it's not their responsibility. So this is one example. Again, at Pillow, we've got hundreds of these little guest communication things that we approach it. What would the best in the world do? And we never want that expectation to not be met. We want it to be exceeded. So a simple thing like topping up your boiler, which you and I can do. Again, we had discussions in the office earlier with the young team earlier in the week. They didn't know what a fuse box was. Young kids can't top up boilers anymore. They can't change fuses. These are things that younger people can't do because technology's moved on, and the basics of we don't need to change fuses, but even changing light bulbs can be hard and confusing for some people, and it freaks them out. Whereas you and I would change it in our own house, would stand in a chair, they may not feel comfortable. So all these different things, we want to set the communications, we want to tell them about potentially bad weather, we want to say if they're driving that road shouldn't be driven on because that's a dual carriageway, that'll get gritted. Really, really up your guest communications there, guys, and have all the contingency plans in place to let them know. Don't be sitting writing and solving problems and firefighting at the last minute. Have all these things in your operational procedures. So this is an often overlooked one. Make sure your property is adequately ventilated. Excuse me, I've just had my lunch quickly to get on time for this call. Ensure your property is adequately ventilated. During the winter, people are shutting windows, it's not getting ventilated, they're putting things on radiators to dry off if they've been out walking, like wet clothes. Insulation's amazing in properties. So one of the things that can happen over a winter period and even over a weekend is that properties get fucked up with damp and mold. And imagine somebody walking into your property and there's a little bit of mold somewhere. Again, it's just damp, it's just condensation, it can get wiped off, but that is a really horrible first impression, guys. You can imagine, if there's hosts out there watching, you 100% know that if somebody went into your property and saw that there was black mold somewhere in a bathroom on a window, they'd be wanting compensation. So trust me, guys, if you've got contractors in place, this is a classic one. Contractors, you've left them be for a few months, and next thing you know, they have got black mold everywhere. Because contractors come in, they'll put their wet clothes, they'll wash, they'll maybe not have the windows open. So this can escalate pretty rapidly, guys. So make sure it is. If you don't action this straight away, you are going to cause real damage to your property. Again, the first impression of somebody coming in, and get your cleaners to open the windows because it can be that easy. The first impression of somebody coming in, your property could be amazing, but there's mold above somewhere. That is horrible. And you 100% no guest would be wanting a refund. Imagine a little bit of black mold caused. It takes a second to fix. You know, if they're uploading these pictures to Airbnb, Airbnb will give them a full refund. You 100% know if they're hitting to social media and blackmailing you for a full refund with these pictures, are going to look worse than it actually is. And I'm not saying guests are bad guys. I'm not saying they could be within the rights. But I ask you, if you moved into a property for a weekend, for a Christmas break, and there was mold, would you just wipe it off, or would you contact the host and expect something? A discount, full compensation, expect something to be done. So if you would expect it, your guests will expect it too. Moving on, make sure I've not missed any of the questions. So winterize outdoor features, often overlooked. Easy if you've got a hot tub, because this will be in your brain, but if you've got outside lights, if you've got things that are going to freeze, like getting into properties, locks freezing, you need to winterize things. Not only will they break, they will get damaged. Water is going to damage these things, so things like outside furniture. But guys, if you've got outside saunas and hot tubs, a little bit of frost, a bit of cold weather over a couple of days is going to absolutely destroy things. I've seen it so many times. That's a nice, simple, easy one. I'll move on to the next one. Maintain heating systems. It's so easy and simple. You might think, why is he even talking about it? Guys, get it serviced in advance. Record this in December, and we've just had a big snow. But as we come into the colder season, heating systems don't get used as much. They don't have as much pressure on them. Now, as we come into the winter, that is when they're on all day, every day, at full blast. During the summer, people might be sitting at like 18, 19 degrees. During the winter, guests are going to come in and get that up to like 30. It's going to put a massive strain on your boiler system. So you want to do this in advance. We'll get it serviced every year. Like the legislation in residential tenancies is gas safety checks. And many times over the last 17 years, we've said to owners, get your boiler serviced every year. No, because that's money. Do I legally need to get my boiler serviced? You don't legally need to, but it would definitely invalidate some of your warranties. It might cause a problem with insurance. But guys, just spend extra to go and get your boiler serviced before the winter period. And we're too late for this now, but next year, go and test it all in advance. As it starts to get chilly, you see people put posts, oh, that's the first frost of the year. That's the first time I've had my heating on. Go and spend some time blasting your heating, because that's when the failures will occur. Regularly inspect your property if empty. Your insurance policy may need this. Again, if we take a nice simple example here of landlords, well, your insurance policy might protect you for might be 2 weeks. Might be 2 weeks that your property is empty, and after that, you need to do certain things to fulfill the criteria to make an insurance claim. So there's a few reasons. One, the insurance claim. Secondly, checking for damage. At this time of year, I can 100% tell you people will be targeting properties, especially short-term rental properties where people are having Christmas. They take the cars, they watch the cars arrive and unloading the Christmas presents. Those people piss off for Christmas dinner. People will be targeting your property. Now, if you're there all the time inspecting it over the winter months, I think Home Alone, you're there all the time, putting people off, deterring them. But things can go wrong over this time of year very, very quickly. A little leak coming from a loft can escalate. A little broken gutter or something with water coming in can bring a ceiling down very, very quickly. So guys, make sure that you are inspecting your properties if empty and being seen to be there. Just don't have properties sitting unattended because people are, nobody's going there, it's safe for me to go and steal that. Remember, if it's a nice quality service accommodation property, it's going to have nice stuff in it and it's going to be empty a lot of the time. At least every single day it's probably going to be empty for some time. It's an easy target, much, much easier than a residential property that people are in all the time. So do it, record it and document your visits as well, because your insurance company will say, oh, you say you've been there, but have you? Well, you can take pictures, you can record this. Trust me, I'll go back to the first thing. If you don't, insurance companies won't take your word that you've been there. You're going to need to prove to them that you've inspected empty properties, and check your insurance policy to find out when that time is. I've seen it as low as 2 weeks, and that's probably not enough over Christmas and New Year for the average property. Prepare for power outages, guys. This is something out with our control. We can't prepare to stop them, but we can prepare to make the guest experience there in the event of a service level failure. And power outages, get candles, got all those things, get blankets, get games and things to do. There is only so much we can do here, but guys, just plan ahead for this. Do you think there'll be a power outage in your property if you've got it for 10 years? Do you think that's going to happen once? Probably. So you do not want any bad reviews. Nice and simple, just candles. Not going to go into it. We'll follow up. But again, I just want to reiterate the fact that these things will happen. I want to get you in the mindset of planning for these things, having contingencies in place. Because imagine there's a power outage and you would say, the power's up. Listen, that's okay. Don't worry. Go up to the top cupboard, see that, well, there's emergency, wind up lights, all these things. We've prepared for this. You accept it's not our fault, we are not the national grid, but hey, we want to make your stay good, blah, blah, blah. So prepare your communications, have systems and procedures for this. Have good relationships with neighbours. Now, sometimes neighbours can be enemies because they don't want you operating an Airbnb business and they get pissed off. But this is where things can get really, really helpful. They're your first point of contact. They're there to check your property, bringing in all the previous points, guys, just to make sure that there's somebody there. They can put the lights on. They can just help your guests if there's any problems. If it's elderly people, they're there for them, and they can even put your bins out. This is a one that applies to all of the year, guys, but especially in the winter. Imagine your boiler fails, well, they can go and cook them a hot meal. So you really, really want to look after your neighbours and make them part of your family, make them part of your business. And that's why we always say, and it's part of our procedures, guys, and this is a super top tip, an advanced strategy. If you're getting your gutters cleaned, clean your neighbour's gutters. If you're getting your grass cut, pay to cut theirs. If you're getting your windows cleaned, get theirs cleaned every week. Why? It's a minimum investment for they guys to be part of your power team to get your neighbours on board. And you may not need them to do these things, but trust me, guys, when things go really, really wrong, they're your first point of contact. And how amazing is that? The difference of, shit, sorry, guys, you're on your own. You're in a country cottage and I can't get there. Nothing I can do. Sorry, boss. Or listen, don't worry. The neighbours come to the door. Oh, well, there's a wee hot cup of tea until the tradesmen come. We'll get blankets. We'll look after you. Why don't come in and get a wee bit of lunch with us? Again, build these relationships with your neighbours. Pay for stuff. Look after your neighbours, and they will look after you. It's a nice, easy, quick one, guys. Get some external lighting. I've seen people and owners that have used us install key boxes. Done it, installed a key box, fine in the summer, but then the dark nights come in and people can't find it and they're tripping over and they're I'm going to say, not scared of the dark. But if it's a young girl and have to walk through alleyways in the dark to find key boxes, then that's maybe simple for me, but it's not simple for your guests. The other one is safety. Convenience, fine, but safety, you need people to feel safe in your property, and unloading a car in the dark, again, just like personal safety or like slipping, falling safety. It's a great first impression for a guest to arrive and being able to see how they can get in. And again, last thing is security. Coming to the winter months, much more likely and easier for people to break into your property. I've already mentioned holiday homes are a great target for thieves. Again, we've seen this time and time again in our area. Even for residential properties, there's a team of people and they get done for 10 different properties. They just went up over the space of a night and did 10 different properties, and that's residential ones where people live. There's a family. These are 4-bed expensive new build houses. Think how easy an empty service accommodation unit is versus an estate of people that live in a 4-bed house, families coming and going all the time. So your property will be a prime target. So a little security light, a ring camera, security system may well prevent that. And if you speak to police officers and all these community things about stuff, having a light, having a fake camera does prevent thieves, and criminals will go for the easiest option. So I like this one. Have a little emergency kit. If you've seen the films with preppers and zombie apocalypses, there's people running about daft not knowing what to do, and then there's the prepper that just grabs his grab bag. Shit hits the fan bag. I do have one of those in my car, not for properties, but in general, a shit hits the fan bag. What happens? Not a zombie outbreak, but what happens if there's power outages? What happens if there's civil breakdowns and riots and everything? Again, I have my emergency bag, my shit hits the fan bag. So if there's things not working like electricity, I have a little wind up torch, we have candles, of all these things that would happen, we take it for granted. We've always had electricity. There's always things that are there that we rely on. We don't think twice about. So have a little bag for your property. Little wind up torch. It could be candles, could be a wee thing with blankets. A nice thing that we have at HQ here is a Wi-Fi dongle. If Wi-Fi goes down, not an emergency, but it is an emergency to a lot of people. So even a little double Wi-Fi dongle, you may be paying for your fixed Wi-Fi, but you've got a little thing you can plug in and it goes off the 5G. Have one of those, and I think you can get them for as little as $7.99 a month. And if you've got 3 or 4 properties plus in an area and they're clustered, paying $15.99 for a dongle to get extra Wi-Fi is an absolute win, and you will make that money back. So a little grab bag, and you think what you would put in it to help your guests in your area. Super simple and gets forgotten about again is check for roof issues, including the gutters. I'll think of, since 2006, I can think easily of 100 cases. I thought about it. How many times have we given this advice every year? Things that could have been prevented by having somebody go and check the roof. Landlords are notoriously tight. If you're a landlord watching this, would you have paid somebody to go and check your roof prior to winter arriving? You know what fucking roofers are like. They're really expensive. They're always busy. They're not getting back to your calls. 100 preventable things over the last 15 years of just roofs having, tiles having moved, like simple things like gutters been full, the downpipes breaking and it going into the property and causing damp in an upstairs bedroom. These are all preventable things, guys, by investing back into your property. Nothing complicated, very, very simple, but it's the simple things that get missed. And I think that's the last one we have. Guys, think of it. If you want to put in any questions, I'll answer them next. But I have deliberately left this one to last. Why? It's the most important. If your electricity breaks or something happens, it isn't a game over situation. Thoroughly inspect your properties for hazards and minimise them. We'll never eradicate them. But guys, this is a game over. This is a bankrupt. This is you losing everything you own if you don't thoroughly do health and safety audits and risk assessments in your property. I've left it to last for a reason, because I'd like to use the remaining time up on this. Often overlooked, and I'll give you an example. I saw a case of somebody in the summer. They didn't clean their decking, and somebody slid in the decking and I think broke their leg or their ankle, and it was like £30,000 they got. If you search for this, you'll see it all the time. If in the winter, it's even more dangerous. If you're slipping on the decking, guys, because you've not cleaned it or it's icy, do you think a guest is going to just break their leg and not follow up? 100%. This is game over stuff. This is what guests will do. They get out the car and you haven't gritted things, or something happens. If there's electrics and the water gets into the electrics and they get electrocuted when they touch a light switch, and this is losing your business stuff. So it's super, super important. So I want you to all go out and do a thorough inspection. Go and look at all the potential hazards. There's templates out there, but even doing this, walking around and thinking from a guest point of view, what dangers can arise here? And often gets overlooked, and it's never a problem till it is. Like I say, somebody's slipping and decking in the summer. They lost everything. They got a crazy claim. People will sue you. At the very, very least, they're going to ask for a refund. I think a thing last happens because all these big things land on my desk. The big game over stuff happening. Some list only properties where we just list it. There was guests that didn't do any, hosts that didn't do any of this. We just found a booking for the host, but they fell and broke their wrist and demanded £65,000 in medical bills because they had this, they had to cancel something else, they got emotional turmoil. Somebody fell and broke their wrist and demanded £65,000. Now, thankfully, we were not the managing agent. We just found a guest for the host, and it was the host's responsibility to do all this, but our name was still involved in it. So trust me, guys, this is the most dangerous. If you can't claim in your insurance or a guest leaves you a bad review, all these things are manageable, but this is game over stuff. If you are electrocuting a guest, if something happens and a guest does want to take it to court, look at the world we live in, guys. It's a super, super dangerous situation to be in if you're not providing a super, super safe product. Don't rely on your cleaners to do this. Don't even rely on third parties. It's ultimately your responsibility as a host. So I want you to go and look at it. Look at it as, you see these crazy litigious Americans. Look at it from like they say the term Karen, demanded to see managers. Look, take the Karen approach. Demanded to speak to people's managers, looking for fault, looking for something to get a free holiday or make money out of you. And that's not how we want to treat our guests, but it's how we treat the professionalism of our business. We're looking at this, and guys, it's a simple way. You should never not want to do this, not to solve a problem and get out of trouble, but to stop these things happening. We need to provide safe products for our guests, and it's often overlooked. Don't have time to do it. I'm not going to pay somebody, but get a nice risk assessment done, health and safety audit. Have that documented, guys. You need that on file. The way I always like to approach everything in business is, what would you need if you were in a court of law proving your innocence? What could you provide the sheriff or whoever runs these things, that person? What could you provide the other person's solicitor to just absolutely protect yourself 100% and work from that position now? So I hope that makes sense, guys. So that's us. There's hundreds of other wee things we can do, but I think this really wraps up everything here. Guys, trust me, just coming from a place of planning ahead from this, being professionals, not cutting corners, not trying to save a few bob here and there. Yes, you will save a couple of quid on a weekly basis, but if you're a professional host over the space of a lifetime, which could be 5-10 years, follow all these tips, guys, and you'll be best protected. So Santa Weir is signing off. I'm going to get out of these antlers and the Christmas jumper and get back to normal, do some work. Thank you for watching, guys. Any other follow-up comments or questions on this, pop them into the chat underneath or contact us, and I'll mention them next week. Thank you.